Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession on the world's #1 chiropractic podcast. Before we dive into this powerful episode, please remember to subscribe to our channels and to give us a 5-star rating on iTunes to continue hustling. This episode is sponsored by Imaging Services, Chiro Health USA, Chiro Moguls, Pure Chiro Notes, Titronics, Sherman College of Chiropractic, New Patients in a Box, the Influencer Authority Podcast Training, Mango Voice, Life Chiropractic College West, and M-Sculpt. Let's hustle.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 469 of the Chiro Hustle podcast. I'm your producer, Luke Millette, and here's your host, James Chester.
So today we have the opportunity of interviewing Dr. Carolyn Fish. And if you want to hear about how family chiropractic is run for 32 years and her career in pediatrics, stay tuned. Welcome back. This is another episode of the Chiro Hustle podcast. It's episode 469. I have Carolyn Fish coming in today, married to a chiropractor, Gary. It's going to be a great episode. I'm really looking forward to it because we had a chance to meet in person down at Dynamic Essentials. And I know that we're going to cover some things about that group and the Georgia Council of Chiropractic, which she's a board member of. But before we get into this episode and talk all things about her and chiropractic, I'm just going to let you all know the big why. And that was super attractive to her, she said, when she first heard me talking about Chiro Hustle, was about the sacred trust. And we do protect the sacred trust with this mission. And by doing so, we also protect freedom of speech because that's essential to freedom of everybody in our culture. But also, we believe in family freedom and medical health freedom. So those things are all really important to the chiropractic lifestyle. And as we developed more, I started to realize that subluxation was something really fundamental and important to this profession. So we do stand behind subluxation-based chiropractic. I think that it's a part of the lexicon, it's a part of the languaging, it's a part of the historical references of chiropractic, and it's a part of the big idea. So after that, we also realized that it was also important to make mention that innate intelligence was something that we had mentioned in our pre-roll. So we do believe in innate intelligence and universal intelligence, that when someone, man or woman, gets adjusted, it connects the physical to the spiritual, and that's the universal intelligence part of it. So with that being said, Carolyn Fish, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm excited. Excited to be here and talk with you.
Yeah, speaking your language, right?
That's right. I was just thinking, there is no chiropractic without all those things you were talking. You can't have chiropractic without talking about innate intelligence, sacred trust, the power that made the body. That's what we are. That's what we do.
Yeah. And the reason I say that stuff is because if nobody listens past the first 2 minutes of our show, I want them to understand the real truth behind chiropractic.
That's right. It's huge. And it's often mistaken. Of course, people come in. I know you've encountered it a zillion times as we have, where people think that it's one thing, think that it's the cure for back pain or whatever they decide, or that it's a terrible thing, but that's because they just haven't figured it out yet or haven't been educated. And that's why any chance we get, we need to step up and share the story.
Yeah, we've been cleaning up disinformation of chiropractic for a long time. And I think that it's important to continuously have a campaign of talking to chiropractors about their beautiful profession and what makes them unique and where they see the profession going, what they do for their own health, who's inspired them. I think these things are really important. So that's a big part of why we asked you to be on our show, because I want to create this tapestry of chiropractic that has a big message behind it. And I know that you went to college, 32 years ago.
You don't have to say that. Yeah.
But you decided to go to school and to become a chiropractor. And since then, you've created a chiropractic family. And, I think that's really valuable. So maybe you could share with us your chiropractic story and the message that you would like to share with our audience today.
Absolutely. I'd love to. When I first, I would tell you for sure, when I was in college, and then when I was in a year of grad school for an entirely different profession, I was in law school for a year. I had no idea of what chiropractic, I had never even heard the word. It had no meaning to me, good or bad or otherwise. And somebody came up to sell the local newspaper to me in my apartment when I was in school. And he explained his real job was that he was in chiropractic school. And I still had no idea what it was. Again, so I got this message when I became a chiropractor, how important it was to teach that story. But to fast forward about a year or so later, and I was at a party. I walked in and this one guy said to me, whatever you do, don't talk to him. He's a chiropractor. So I don't remember the first guy, but I married the second guy and still didn't really know what chiropractic was. But I was working a little bit in Gary's office and seeing just one miracle after another, after another, after another. And not even the patients didn't flinch. They didn't look at it like a miracle, if you will. It was just part of their story and their life. And I wanted a part of that. So I decided I had to come on board.
But based on those stories, those people weren't going there to get their life changed. They're going to see if they could get help with something, weren't they?
Right. That was the entree. They would come in the door because something was bothering them. They had a headache, a back pain, but then you hear how their life turns around, how that dimmer switch gets full on and they just can function with so much more ease. And the stories are just countless, but it's a beautiful thing to witness because I did have a patient reprimand me once when I said it was a miracle. She said, no, you trained for this. And I said, technique wise, yes, we know that's part of the chiropractic three-legged stool is the science and the arts, which is the technique. But we remove the interference after analyzing that subluxation you were speaking about. And then it's really up to that body and the energy between us that makes the difference. And that's why I think it's miraculous.
Yeah, there's a lot of fundamentals that chiropractic know, like the chiropractic profession knows, that the rest of the world doesn't know. And I think that that's something that maybe we could talk a little bit about today. Like, why is it so vitally important for people to understand the chiropractic profession?
I think it's vitally important because it allows for an opportunity of reconnection. We forget sometimes the big picture, and it's really all about the big picture. There's this universal intelligence from which we get the innate intelligence within each of us, and it allows us to function, heal, adapt. That's the key part, I think, because as we get stressed all the time, we're in a constant state of adaptation. And when the stressors become greater than our ability to adapt, we get subluxated or have the potential to become subluxated. We may or may not know that, which I think is why our story is it's so vital to get our story out there, because we can't always feel or tell or know when we have a subluxation until it's been there for a long time. And then it becomes more detrimental.
Yeah, I think it's like telling the world that there's 10,000 books you can read and to read through them as fast as you can. But it's not that simple. You have to find one book and read it so well and understand it so well. And that's chiropractic to me. And all the other 9,000 or 999,000 books out there that are actually capable of being read, then they make more sense. So instead of like thinking that you have to read like every book that ever existed, you need to understand the universal construct of the baseline of chiropractic and then start building your knowledge base on that. And then everything else in the medical world's easier to understand. Everything in the, what you eat, what you think, what you drink is all easier to make good, sound decisions around.
That's right. And sometimes it means going back to the beginning and having the patient or the community member, whoever you're speaking with, really think about why they're doing, they have a headache or they have a fever. Why? It's good. Congratulations. You need that fever. Reframe a little bit what the mindset is around all these processes that we undergo and figure out how we can improve on that in a way that's healthy and strong and vital.
Yeah, so many times I hear people talk about like trying to find out like why somebody's allergic to something or why they have some type of a symptom response. And they do this removal thing. Like They do this reductionary like model. Yeah, an elimination diet. But I think a lot of times we have to do that the way that we think.
No kidding. It's fun to watch people do it, though, isn't it? You've seen that when they start to eliminate. Okay, well, that hasn't worked for me for the last 25 years. Let's try a new way of thinking. People get
I think a lot of it's behavioral. And a lot of it's how we were brought up. But I also believe in epigenetics. I believe that when we put ourselves in a more positive state, in a better environment, that a lot of the old stressors go away and we can become who we're supposed to be.
No question. I've been accused of being a Pollyanna before because I choose to live in that state. I choose to be positive and intrinsically thinking of what, how to make something right and not dwelling on why it went wrong and not predicting a bad outcome, but expecting a good outcome. And it works.
Amen.
It creates
So,
more
so,
ease.
so let me ask you, you said you worked in an office before you went to chiropractic school?
I did. I did for a long time.
So what did you see like working as like a marketing technique back then? And what do you see working today?
It was really different back then in terms of ownership, I think, at least my experience. When I first got into chiropractic in the late 80s, we were watching people come in. Insurance was a big part of it. So there was really little to no responsibility that the patient had. They would come in as long as somebody else was paying and it was fine. Today, we see less of that. So more of a choice, more patients walking in saying, I want this for me, for my baby, for my parents, my family, and I'm willing to do what it needs to take. So it does require more education, but as long as you stay truthful to that story, people will get that feeling.
So marketing to you is a lot depends on how you interact with the people.
I am a big fan of one-to-one FaceTime, talking to somebody, meeting them, shaking their hand, introducing, I I admit that initially I was gun shy about saying I'm a chiropractor. And I used to, before I became a chiropractor, I didn't understand how you could get that message down in such a short period of time. I'd say to my husband, he graduated 10 years before I did. And I'd say, how'd you know how to say that? And then when you do it over and over and over, you realize that it's really all about connection. And I've heard you say getting people to love you, right? Getting people to love what it is that you're sharing with them because you're loving them. They hear that message and they feel it, and then they can go from there and get more information.
So you like knee-to-knee marketing?
Yeah, I do. I really do.
I
Old
think
school, maybe.
that's unique though. Like it's important to get knee to knee with people and to make sure that they feel acknowledged and heard. And that's what I tell people all the time when I help them out when I'm doing a screening event. I tell them you're actually going to go and see a doc that's going to do an exam, a consultation, and a health history. You're going to be able to talk to them about any of your health concerns that you have, even things you might not have told me, but you're going to get time with them. They're going to do that exam and tell you what's going on, tell you how much concern there's. They're going to tell you how you can help. They can help you. I call it the relationship builder. If you like us, you think we're a good fit, you'll stick with us. If you
Right.
come in for those first 2 visits, you realize it's not the right place for you. There's no strings attached for further care, but I guarantee you one thing: you're going to like us.
You're going to like us. We had a patient in the office yesterday who's been a patient probably 17 years, I think. And she was she was actually arguing with me when I explained to her that Fish Family Chiropractic, which is our practice name, was so named because we see families. And she said, no, it's not. It's because you and your husband are in the practice together. And now we have a daughter in chiropractic school. I said, no, it's because we see families. But it is that connection that you have with people that makes them stay and become part of your family, your chiropractic family.
And that must be rewarding, right? When you get a chance to work with families. And I know that you have, what does it say here? A fellow of the International Chiropractic Pediatric Association.
Yes. I love seeing pregnant moms come in and then watching their babies grow. And we were just talking to a family who's, there's 2 kids, and the oldest daughter was in an infant carrier when they came into our office. And now she's about to be 10, which blows my mind. And she has an 8-year-old brother. And mom was adjusted as a kid. And then, as an adult came into our office. And it's funny to watch, even though her husband has never been a chiropractic patient of ours, he insists that she bring the kids in because he sees how it translates, sees how his kids are different than his coworkers' kids. And we love it because when you have patients coming back and bringing their children and then their grandchildren and you see them grow up. I will share with you briefly. I was so astounded the other day. I talked to a dad in the office whose daughters are 4 and 2. I hope I'm right on that. I think they're coming up on some birthday. And I said, I can't wait for 10 years to see how their interaction is. And he says, are you going to still be doing this in 10 years? I was insulted, but I told him, as long as I'm physically able, you bet. And I expect you to be here so I can see how your family's doing.
So speaking of that longevity, I like the segue. What are you doing to stay healthy? How are you taking care of yourself and your family's health?
Well, most importantly, we all get checked. I have 2 kids, and they and my husband and I get checked every week, if not more. And we put that on the top of our list of what we must do to stay healthy and well. And my favorite form of exercise is to be out walking in the neighborhood and get a few miles in when I'm just surrounded by peace and quiet out where I go. And the other part for me is really being around people who are positive, strong, powerful, passionate. And I reinforce that with what I listen to, like your podcasts, and staying grounded by being, in fact, tonight we have a Band of Brothers holiday dinner, and I'm looking forward to that too, just to connect with people who share the principle and passion with me. Keeps me well.
So it sounds like mind and spirit matter to you, and
100%.
you sprinkle in a little bit of body with some walks and some adjustments.
Right.
So
Well
the three-legged stool of Carolyn Fish is mind, body, spirit.
That's right. That's a good thing, right?
I love it, and keeping the principle alive with chiropractic in your family and your community.
When our oldest daughter was a toddler and we were trying to get her to go to sleep. She never was like, can I have some more water? Can I have some else? She'd say, can I get adjusted? Because she knew we couldn't say no. And finally it dawned on me. I'd say, I'll check you in the morning. And she'd go to sleep. But that was, she was wise beyond her years, but she knew how important it was to our family. So.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. Is like, teach them young, and keeping a clear nervous system helps with all aspects, including sleep, I'm sure.
That's right. Especially if we can get rid of the electronics, but that's a different talk.
Yeah, I think that all of us are a bit overstimulated, and
yes.
if we're not paying attention to our posture, we're starting to lose that. So I think that the more that we can do our spinal rehabilitation exercises and stuff is important too, because we're all looking forward. We're all either driving, we're on technology, we're reading, we're cooking, we're doing something that promotes forward head posture. So I think chiropractic is the practice of chiropractic within our health paradigm is we have to be more mindful of, going back.
That's right. It's a conscious effort.
Working on our posterior chain. And I think a lot of times people don't realize how forward we are and how much technology, like if you looked at most people's reports on their cell phones, I would tell you that they're on it between the average of 5 to 8 hours a day.
That's true.
And
it's good. I'm using mine right now, but it shouldn't be all the time for sure. Mm-hmm. There's a time and a place.
Especially with the developmental years. I think that developmental years, we need more, real life. We need more playing outside and more, when I grew up, my mom would always have to yell at the streetlights came on.
That's right.
James Thomas,
Get inside.
Yeah. Like now, like you can't, it's hard to get a kid to go outside for like 10 minutes.
And it involves so much too. Of course, posture, of course, spine, brain, body connection, but how we communicate with others, they don't have any idea. The younger and younger they get on these
devices,
toys, they don't realize that need connection we were just talking about, how and why it's so vital.
So let's transition a little bit to community. I know that you really enjoy being a part of your local community, not only the chiropractic community, part of with the GCC and the Band of Brothers and your practice, but what do you guys specifically do for Fish Family Chiropractic to stay connected to your local community?
Well, I guess it turns back around a little bit to technology, where we're trying to keep a presence on Facebook and Instagram, and I try to recruit the minds of my children and my interns and team and patience, because it's not my strong suit there, but we've been trying to reach more people that way. And mostly it's whenever we're out and about and doing activities in the community, from festivals, fairs, meetings, getting a chance to anytime we get a chance to talk to somebody, we know chiropractic's going to come into the conversation. We just can't help ourselves. It does. And sometimes it's a short conversation, but sometimes it's longer, and we just keep sharing the story.
You've made it to Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession on the world's #1 chiropractic podcast. This episode is sponsored by Imaging Services, Chiro Health USA, Chiro Moguls, Pure Chiro Notes, Titronics, Sherman College of Chiropractic, New Patients in a Box, the Influencer Authority Podcast Training, Mango Voice, Life Chiropractic College West, and M-Sculpt. Let's hustle. Yeah, I think that, building a strong community bond as a chiropractor, it gives people a resource. And there used to be a way that they would say you'll be the talk of the town.
Right.
And I think that when people do become community oriented, and you build a relationship with your dry cleaner, you build a relationship with your local coffee shop, you build a relationship with the local sandwich shop, your church, like you do become the referral source for so many people if you start to just, show up and be kind and genuine and available. Everybody has an issue eventually, and they're going to say, where do I go for this?
Right. And when we were at a local restaurant the other day that's really we could almost walk to from our office, and we walk in and one of the employees yells out, "Hey, Dr. Fish." And I thought, well, that's kind of cool, to know and like you said, be thought of, so that when they think that they have a need, even though we know they might have a need right now, they'll know what that means and where to go and be there for it.
We call that relationship capital.
It's the best kind, isn't it?
Yeah, because, when people do know, love, and trust you, then you're always their go-to. And whether they're pregnant or they're looking to get pregnant,
right,
or they've had some type of a trauma, you can always be their go-to. And for their kids, like you were saying earlier, like for their family. And yeah, are you going to be there in 10 years? You hope so.
We hope so.
We hope that they're there too.
That's the key.
Mm-hmm. So based on that, the premise of chiropractic going forward, how do you see the profession as not just to say like chiropractic as a profession, but how do you see the future going for the point of access of chiropractic to communities?
The point of access. I do think that we have seen the communities as a whole, community members, assume more responsibility, though I hate to reflect on the past couple of years. We saw a brilliant example of what works and what doesn't work. And that chiropractic remained, at least in our town, which we fought for in our state, accessible and available and a safe haven for patients to come and stay strong and well and healthy. Whether or not they become symptomatic is not the issue, but to be available. But your question, tell me again specifically, because I'm not sure.
Well, I'm curious as to, like, you're mentioning that chiropractic for people that are in need. I'm talking like the future of chiropractic. Do we feel like chiropractic is going to become the point of entry for the medical profession? Do we really feel like, is there like a path going that way? Like anybody that needs care is going to be coming to a chiropractor, then be referred out to other practitioners. Is that a path that we're going to, or is it going to be like, we're going to just keep on fighting as hard as we fought to like own our turf and not to like become like the rest of the allopathic medical model?
I now understand what you're saying. Yeah, I think the first option, and the reason I think that it'll be its own portal of entry. We have always said chiropractic first, drugs second, surgery last, and we know that those options remain available. Not that they're never to be used, but first, let's respect the body that we were given by God and with our innate intelligence, and let it have a chance to do what we need to do. And if we listen to our youngest people, we can think of like a 3-year-old. I remember it was the middle of the night. And again, this goes back to need, but if you'll just give me the second, she had an earache and she was telling her mom, I need you to call Dr. Carolyn. And she says, I can't call her. She's not at the office. So she quickly shifts gears and said, well, then call Miss Becky, who is our CA. So she figured if I wasn't there, somebody would be there to check her. So if the children are raised knowing that the first line of defense is chiropractic, I think that's a big start. It's easier than to retraining them later on, although we're always willing to do it. But I think it's so vital to get the message out there that chiropractic is for optimum. We don't need to, the dentists have done a brilliant job educating about why we don't wait until there's a problem to seek out care. And we just need to get a little stronger in that aspect. And we're doing great a spine at a time in our communities, but hopefully we'll get that 100 monkey momentum here shortly and serve BJ and Dee Dee's vision proudly.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to be said about what chiropractic can do, and using that the benchmark of what the dental industry has done. The only real significance there is most dentists do everything the same way. And under chiropractic is each chiropractor has a bit different philosophy, a bit different technique. So to get a unified front of chiropractors following the dental model, we just have to really focus on subluxation and adjusting.
Right.
And if that's the cornerstone of the profession moving forward, then I believe that chiropractic can, become the dental industry standard for health and wellness and vitality when it comes to what type of practitioner you're going to go see. And I do think that people have been under like a huge, significant use. They used to say that chiropractic was an alternative. And, right. I think that now people are starting to wake up and realize that they want like a real practitioner. Yes. They want somebody that's really going to be interested in them and their family's health. And they've seen what's been happening the past couple of years, what happens when you blindly trust the system for your family's health. And now we're seeing so many times where it's just starting to really reveal itself. And chiropractic has not changed. It's only stayed the same, and if not, it's gotten better.
That's right. It has gotten better. It's gotten uniquely positioned to stay strong as long as we keep going back to that principle, which is why, again, I love that shirt. But as long as we keep going back to principled chiropractic, you can't veer off from that and communicate this power and to educate people. And I think we have so much within our hands and our hearts and our background, and our history is rich. It's just that I think over this little bit of years, people have been trying to add this and this and this to it to make it, to make it assimilate or make it feel more like something else. But I was very fortunate because when I was introduced to chiropractic, it was at DE. It was with Dr. Sid and Dr. Sigafus and, just so many brilliant minds who shared the story in a beautiful way that I got to learn from that. I never had to come back and get it through a back door. This is why we do what we do. And so to me, it's so simple and second nature. I love it.
Yeah, I think so too. And as you talk about, chiropractic's philosophy and chiropractic's principles, I think that people that listen to this episode, they're going to learn a lot about, positioning. And I look at chiropractic as a huge chessboard within the medical world. And, we've seen a lot of plays being made lately within the medical world, without people's appreciation or inclusion. It's just been kind of like, we're going to make these things happen. And if you don't like it, then you got to do it anyways. And chiropractic has still held down the king and queen of the chessboard to say, we're not going in any direction. We're staying put. We're holding our ground. We're not compromising our principle. We're not compromising our ethics. We're not going to sell out the sacred trust. We're not going to, go against the Hippocratic Oath. We're only going to do what's best for the people in front of us. And I think that that's what I tell people is chiropractic is a standalone profession. It's not in the medical industry. It's chiropractic.
Right.
And so when I see people have, Doctor of Chiropractic Medicine on their diploma, it makes me want to throw up,
Yeah,
because
it does.
there's nothing about chiropractic and medicine that go together. So
It's
that's
not
why back in the day when they were arresting these chiropractors for practicing medicine without a license, chiropractors were happily to go get locked up because they weren't practicing medicine. They were adjusting their patients.
right.
And that's a big division now. Is like we have to like make that clear. Is like chiropractic is not a medical profession; it's chiropractic.
It's chiropractic. And I think that's why I struggled a little bit with the question in terms of portal of entry and getting into. And I don't really think of people coming to me so that I can help them find which MD is the best one for their care. I do see it as a uniquely, distinctly separate profession that it doesn't have to have any fighting between, chiropractic and medicine. It's just, this is what we do. And what we do is so very different from our approach, from our looking at a whole body approach is so very different from allopathic medicine that it's apples and oranges. And we're tired of being pawns, right? Chiropractors are ready to say, checkmate.
Yeah, but I think that we'd be in a whole big different mess right now if chiropractors didn't stand on their philosophy and on the reckoning of who they are as doctors.
No
We'd
question.
our country would absolutely be destroyed right now if it wasn't for chiropractic. And if it wasn't for chiropractors protecting the sacred trust, it wasn't for the chiropractic positioning on the chessboard, chiropractic is the great savior.
Yes,
I really believe so.
I do
And
too. Thank God for it.
we'd all be washed up and controlled if it wasn't for chiropractic philosophy.
And that wouldn't suit any of our personalities, would it?
No. So let's talk abundance now. Who are some of your heroes? Who are some of the people that influenced you to become who you are today?
Well, especially when I think about chiropractic, I think technique wise and go right back. And again, I was very fortunate by the people that were around when I was learning this profession. Is I think back to Dr. Vern Pierce, who made it so simple to look at an X-ray and see, here's some analysis, here's how to easily define major areas of subluxation, minor areas. I once got adjusted by Dr. Dick Santo, and I don't know whether you met him, but brilliant. He taught me about adjusting adjusting innately, that I was on the table and I can't even say he was palpating me because I swear his hands must have been 3 inches off my back, but I felt it like he was right there. And he had such powerful intuition and intention. People like that really made it easy for me to learn how to adjust. And then the why of it, I really have to credit my husband, Gary, who took me to meet all these wonderful people, like the two I mentioned, including Dr. Sid and Sigafus, I mentioned before, Dr. Fred Barge. I mean, the list is very, very long, but powerful speakers that we have a lot of great people teaching nowadays. I just felt like there was something when I was so new that made what they had to say so profound that I feel very fortunate to have learned from them.
And I know that this is kind of like a follow-up to that. I know you mentioned meeting all these amazing chiropractors, but I can't, end this conversation with you today without talking about Dynamic Essentials.
Yes.
Why was Dynamic Essentials so important to your life when you first joined and started coming to those gatherings? And why is it important to young chiropractors today?
Well, what is the second one first? It's important today to go to a place where you can walk in the room, be surrounded by like-minded people, like you'll find at Dynamic Essentials, without any agenda. Nobody on the stage is selling anything other than principled, passionate chiropractic. And I love that. And then for me, Gary had been going to DE many, many years before we even met. And when he took me the first time, it's kind of a funny story in that we walked into this great big lobby and he's hugging all the women that he sees. And we just started dating. And I'm thinking, what a show off. What is he doing here? And next thing you know, he's hugging all the guys that he sees. And I was really taken aback because I didn't come from that kind of background. But I learned that when you love unconditionally, this is a place that allows you to fill up all those, we go back every quarter for DE. We're coming up to one in January in Clearwater, Florida. And you can refill your pot because that exchange of energy that we as chiropractors and as human beings experience on a day-to-day basis just needs to be tended to lovingly and kindly, and DE is a great place to refill there.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. I felt the same way when I showed up there, and people said, "Welcome to the family." And, I felt like really like connected to the community. Me not being a chiropractor, but an advocate for the profession. It was really nice to be recognized and to be acknowledged by the Dynamic Essential Group. As moving forward into the conversation today, I have two more questions for you. Let's talk about a miracle story that you've seen in practice.
Okay.
And then I'll finish it up with one last question, if that's okay.
All right. The miracle stories are fun because there's so many, but I won't do that to you. One of my favorite miracle stories is about this gentleman we met many years ago. We were doing a screening with a friend who practices in another town about 40 minutes from us. And we're educating him about chiropractic care. This man happened to be a Shriner. So I say that because he was very giving, loving, kind, always wanted to do for others. And when we were talking to Frank about coming in, he says, "Oh, I can't help you. I want to come in for you, but I live in Roswell, Georgia." And so that's where our office is located. So he came into us and he fills out the paperwork. And after a few visits, we come up to grab him and say, "Come on, get adjusted." And he is just grinning from ear to ear. And we're, "Frank, what's going on?" And he said for the first time in 20 years, he was able to donate blood. Again, this giver side of him. He had high blood pressure and could never donate blood. Well, symptomatically, it's a great story. But the reason I like to share it, especially with chiropractors, is that he never told us he had high blood pressure. That was never part of our conversation. It was never on any, report of findings that we had with him. We were looking for and analyzing the vertebral subluxation, and by removing that, his body could be all that it could be so that he could then give to others and help them be all that they could be. And that's why I love that story. It's, again, about relationship capital, connections, and energy.
Yeah, and that's just it, as we are all a fountainhead for health and wellness if we pay attention to our main thing, and that's our vitality. And chiropractic delivers that time and time again. And
yes, it does.
I love these stories at the end of these segments just because everybody has something that they've seen that's changed the course of other people's lives through chiropractic. And, one of my favorite lines is from, I think it's either Sigafus or Reggie Gold. And they would always say, "We can't even cure a ham."
That's right.
I think it's so funny.
And so true.
But it's true. The body self-regulates and self-heals. Chiropractors just remove the interference by correcting the subluxation. And the body is an amazing, organic source of health and wellness. It doesn't need anything extra in it. It simply needs no interference. And when the chiropractor detects and corrects that subluxation, the body has a way of healing itself. And it's interesting to say that it can self-cure, right. but the chiropractor doesn't do anything except for find it, fix it, and leave it alone.
And it makes it so simple. It's just truth.
Find it, fix it, leave it alone. And go as necessary. Sometimes people would always come up to me when I'd be out working and selling chiropractic at events. They'd be like, "Well, if I come once, do I have to come the rest of my life?" I'm like, you don't have to. No. But I'd recommend it. I mean, if you want to have quality of life from today, the day you met me, to the rest of the years of your life, I'd recommend you at least build a relationship with that office and see if they could help you out for the rest of your life.
Or as long as you want to be healthy.
Yeah, and then I say back to dentistry. I'm like, it's like saying that you're going to go to the dentist for one time and you're never going to go back the rest of your life. What are your teeth going to look like? I'm like, yeah, you can do that too, but I'll see where you're at when you're 60.
That's right. You only brush the teeth you want to keep. You only bring the kids in. My husband loves to tell patients, you only bring your children in the ones that you like. You can leave the other ones at home. No.
So last question. If you were the last chiropractor on planet Earth, would the profession survive?
Yes. I'd like to say yes. I hope it would, because my intention and my passion for this profession has never wavered. It's only gotten stronger. I've been in practice now for coming up on 30 years. in the fall or spring. And I would say that my understanding of the principle and my ability to express it and to be passionate about it has only increased and gotten stronger. So yes, I would like to say it would survive.
Well, if you were the only chiropractor and I was the only chiropractic advocate, I would help you.
Well, thank you. I'm not sure if that's saying a lot. Thank you for that help if I was the only one out there.
Well, it's a hypothetical question. I'm helping.
That's right.
I'm helping all the chiropractors, I hope.
Yes.
And with that being said, if people want to learn more about you or get connected to you, where can I send them to?
So our website is Fish Family Chiropractic, and my email address is carolynfish@comcast.net. So either way, we'd love to hear from you.
Well, Carolyn, I really appreciate you being episode 469 on the Chiro Hustle podcast.
Wow.
I want you to have a great rest of your day, and thanks for being our guest.
Thank you so much for having me here.
I had a lot of fun. Thanks.
I did too. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye for now. Thanks for listening to Chiro Hustle. Don't forget to subscribe and check back next week to continue hustling.